Victor Whitmore's words echoed in the room like a gunshot. "You're not even her real granddaughter," he sneered, his sharp eyes cutting into me without mercy. "Only blood relatives deserve the Whitmore fortune." I stood frozen in my grandmother Evelyn Whitmore's study, the scent of old books and polished wood wrapping around me like a familiar embrace that suddenly felt foreign. The tall shelves, the antique clock, the Persian rug, everything in this room had once felt like home. Now it felt like a courtroom. My grandmother had been buried just 3 days ago, yet grief hadn't even settled before greed arrived, loud and shameless. "What are you talking about?" I whispered, my throat tight. "Grandma Evelyn called me her granddaughter, until her last breath." Victor laughed, cold and humorless. "That doesn't make it true, Clara." He turned toward the portrait hanging above the fireplace, Grandma Evelyn in her younger years, elegant and strong, her eyes seeming to watch us even now. "She hated lies," Victor continued. "She believed blood was everything. Legacy. Lineage. Once the truth comes out, you'll walk away with nothing." My heart pounded violently. "What truth?" Victor stepped closer, lowering his voice like he was sharing a secret meant to destroy me. "You're not mine." The words hit harder than any slap ever could. "I raised you," he went on, almost bored now. "But that doesn't make you a Whitmore. And it certainly doesn't make you worthy of her inheritance." I clenched my fists, forcing myself not to crumble. "So you're saying I don't deserve anything?" I asked quietly. "Yes," he said instantly. "And I'll make sure of it." I swallowed. "Do you promise to stand by that? That only blood relatives should inherit?" Victor straightened, confidence radiating from him. "Absolutely. I'll personally see that imposters don't steal what belongs to this family." That word, imposter, burned. "My name is Clara Whitmore. I'm 27 years old. And until 5 minutes ago, I believed Victor Whitmore was my biological father. Now, standing in the mansion I grew up in, I felt like a stranger. Grandma Evelyn had always told me I was special. She taught me business principles, life lessons, and independence. Before she died, she had squeezed my hand and said, "What's mine will protect you." Victor clearly had other plans. "You can attend the will reading next week," he said dismissively. "But don't embarrass yourself by expecting anything. I've already spoken to Samuel Reed, the family lawyer." My stomach dropped. "You planned this," I said. He smirked. "I prepared for it." When he left the room, his footsteps echoed louder than the silence he left behind. I collapsed into Grandma Evelyn's chair, my hands trembling as I touched the desk where she had signed her final documents. My phone buzzed. A message from my mother. "Helen, we need to talk tonight. There are things you don't know." My chest tightened. If Victor wasn't my father, then who was? And why was everyone so afraid of the truth? The drive to my mother's house felt longer than usual, every red light stretching my nerves thinner. My hands gripped the steering wheel as Victor's words replayed in my head again and again. "You're not mine." By the time I pulled into the driveway, my stomach was in knots. My mother, Helen Whitmore, opened the door before I could even knock. Her eyes were red, swollen, the kind that told me she'd been crying for hours. "You came," she whispered. "Of course I did," I replied, stepping inside. "You said there are things I don't know." She locked the door behind me. That scared me. We sat at the kitchen table, the same one where she used to help me with homework, the same one where Grandma Evelyn drank her tea every Sunday afternoon. Tonight, it felt like a confessional. Helen folded her hands together, staring at them like they belonged to someone else. "Victor spoke to you," she said quietly. "Yes," I answered. "He said I'm not his daughter." She closed her eyes. I hoped he wouldn't be the one to tell you. The silence screamed. So it's true. My voice cracked. You lied to me my entire life. Helen's eyes filled with tears. I was trying to protect you. From what? I demanded. From who I am. She took a shaky breath. From the truth about your real father. My heart slammed against my ribs. Who is he? I whispered. She hesitated, then finally said the name. Nathan Brooks. The name meant nothing, and somehow everything. He was kind, she continued, her voice trembling. Honest? Not like Victor. We were young, reckless, and in love. So why didn't you marry him? Because he didn't come from money, she said bitterly. And Victor did. The realization hit me like ice water. You chose Victor for the Whitmore name. I chose stability, she snapped, then softened immediately. I was scared. My parents pressured me. Evelyn pressured me. My grandmother. She knew. I asked. Helen nodded slowly. She knew everything. My breath caught. Grandma Evelyn knew I wasn't a Whitmore, and still loved me. She loved you more than anyone, Helen said firmly. That's why she made sure you were protected. Protected how? Before I could ask, Helen stood and opened a drawer, pulling out a thick envelope. She told me to give this to you if Victor ever tried to erase you. My hands shook as I took it. Inside were documents. Old ones. Photos. Letters. Bank records. And one piece of paper that made my knees go weak. A DNA report. My eyes scanned the page until they found the result. Probability of paternity, 99.98% father, Nathan Brooks, he wanted to be part of your life, Helen whispered. Victor threatened him. Promised to ruin him financially if he ever came near us. My chest burned with anger. And you let that happen. I thought I was saving you, she cried. But I was wrong. I looked back at the documents. Why keep all this? Helen swallowed. Because Evelyn told me to. She said Victor would expose the truth one day, but not the way he expects. That sent a chill through me. What did she mean? Helen hesitated, then smiled faintly. She changed everything in her will. The will. Victor was so confident. So smug. You're saying. Grandma Evelyn knew Victor would try to disinherit me. She anticipated it, Helen replied. And she planned for it. My phone buzzed. A notification from an unknown number. This is Nathan Brooks. I think it's time we talked. My heart stopped. My real father. I don't understand, I whispered. If Victor proves I'm not his, won't that disqualify me? Helen leaned forward. Not if Evelyn rewrote the rules. The room felt heavy with possibility. For the first time since Grandma Evelyn's funeral, something flickered inside me. Hope. Victor believed blood was power. He had no idea what was coming. I stared at my phone long after the screen went dark. This is Nathan Brooks. I think it's time we talked. Those words carried 27 years of silence. I need to meet him, I said finally. My mother's face tightened. Are you sure? No, I admitted. But I need answers. We agreed to meet Nathan the next morning at a small cafe on the edge of town, the kind of place no one from the Whitmore world would ever visit. I arrived early, my nerves buzzing. When the door opened, I knew instantly. He looked nothing like Victor. Nathan Brooks was taller, broader, with tired eyes that softened the moment they met mine. He stopped mid-step, like he wasn't sure he was allowed to move closer. Clara, he said quietly. Hearing my name in his voice did something to my chest I wasn't ready for. We sat across from each other, silence heavy between us. "I've waited my entire life for this," he said. "And I never thought it would actually happen." "Why didn't you fight harder?" I asked, the question escaping before I could stop it. He flinched. "I tried," he said. "Victor threatened me. His lawyers. His money. He made it clear I'd lose everything if I didn't disappear." Anger surged through me. "So you just left?" I watched from a distance, Nathan replied. "Birthdays. School events. I saw you once at the park when you were 10. You were feeding ducks with Evelyn." My throat tightened. "She knew," I whispered. Nathan nodded. "She protected me too, quietly. She told me one day you'd need the truth." The pieces were falling into place. "What about the will?" I asked. Nathan leaned forward. "Victor thinks blood disqualifies you. But Evelyn wasn't bound by his rules." That afternoon, Victor made his move. I received a formal email from Samuel Reed, the family attorney. Notice of intent to contest inheritance. Victor was challenging my right to attend the will reading. "He's scared," Helen said when I told her. I wasn't so sure. That evening, I returned to Grandma Evelyn's house to retrieve a few personal items. As I climbed the stairs, I noticed the study door slightly open. Inside, Victor stood at the desk. "What are you doing here?" I demanded. He turned slowly, eyes narrowing. "I could ask you the same." "This is still my home," I said. "For now," he replied. "Reed tells me you're planning to embarrass yourself in court." I crossed my arms. "You promised only blood relatives deserve the inheritance." "I stand by that." "Good," I said. "Because blood is about to matter more than you think." Victor laughed. "You think you can outplay me?" "I think Grandma Evelyn already did." For the first time, doubt flickered across his face. 3 days later, the family gathered in Reed's office for the will reading. The room was tense. Victor sat confidently at the head of the table. I sat across from him, hands steady. Samuel Reed cleared his throat. "Evelyn Whitmore left multiple addendums to her will," he began. Victor's smile stiffened. "Clause 4, Reed continued, establishes a trust for Clara Whitmore, irrevocable." Victor slammed his hand on the table. "She's not a Whitmore." Reed raised an eyebrow. Evelyn anticipated this objection. He slid a document across the table. "In the event of paternity disputes, Clara is to be considered her granddaughter by choice, not blood." The room went silent. Victor's face darkened. "That's not all," Reed added. "Clause 5 transfers controlling shares of Whitmore Holdings to Clara." Victor stood abruptly. "That's impossible." "It's lawful," Reed said calmly. "And binding." I met Victor's gaze. "You said blood decides everything," I reminded him softly. "This isn't over," he hissed. As he stormed out, I realized something powerful. Victor had underestimated love. And Evelyn had outsmarted him. Victor didn't disappear quietly. Within 48 hours of the will reading, my inbox flooded with legal notices. Motions. Appeals. Claims questioning Grandma Evelyn's mental state in her final months. "He's attacking the will itself," Helen said, her voice shaking as she read the documents. I felt a strange calm settle over me. "Of course he is," I replied. "He doesn't know how to lose." Samuel Reed confirmed it during our meeting that afternoon. "Victor is alleging undue influence," he explained. "He's claiming you manipulated Evelyn while she was vulnerable." I let out a sharp laugh. "I was the one bringing her soup and medication." Reed nodded. "The court will see that." But Victor has resources. He'll drag this out. That night, I barely slept. My phone buzzed repeatedly, unknown numbers, silent calls, a few messages with no text. Intimidation. The next morning, I arrived at Whitmore Holdings for the first time as a board-appointed trustee. The building smelled of steel and polish, power humming through its halls. Employees stared as I walked past, some curious, some hostile. Victor was already there. He stood as I entered the conference room. "You don't belong here," he said coldly. "I legally do," I replied, taking my seat. The board meeting was brutal. Victor challenged every word I spoke, every decision I suggested. But something unexpected happened. They listened. Evelyn's shadow still held weight. After the meeting, a woman approached me quietly. "My name is Marianne Doyle," she whispered. "I worked closely with your grandmother." She slipped a flash drive into my hand. "Victor doesn't know about this." That evening, Nathan and I watched the contents together. Emails. Financial records. Proof that Victor had been siphoning company funds into offshore accounts for years. "He's been stealing," Nathan said grimly. "And accusing me of manipulation," I replied. 2 days later, Victor struck again. Papers were served at my door. Emergency injunction, he was attempting to freeze the trust. "He's desperate," Reed said over the phone. "But there's something else." My stomach tightened. "He filed a petition to declare you legally unrelated to Evelyn." "So he's doubling down," I murmured. "Yes," Reed said. "But there's a risk. If the court allows DNA testing," I finished the sentence. "They'll confirm Victor isn't my father." "That could weaken his public image," Reed said. "But it also opens doors." That night, Victor confronted me in the driveway. "You think exposing me will save you," he sneered. "I think you exposed yourself," I replied calmly. His eyes flashed with rage. "You should have stayed quiet." "I spent my whole life doing that," I said. "I'm done." A week later, the preliminary hearing began. Victor arrived with a team of attorneys. I arrived with evidence. Marianne's files shattered his narrative. Offshore accounts. Forged approvals. Emails with dates that contradicted his claims. The judge's expression hardened with every page. "This court will not tolerate misuse of corporate funds," she said. Victor's confidence cracked. As we exited the courtroom, Nathan squeezed my shoulder. "You're stronger than he ever thought." I looked back at Victor, surrounded by lawyers, smaller somehow. For the first time, I realized the truth. He wasn't powerful. He was afraid. I should have known Victor wouldn't stop at legal attacks. Power like his never surrenders quietly. 3 nights after the hearing, my phone rang at 2:17 a.m. An unknown number. I didn't answer. A second later, a message appeared. "Check your car." My heart slammed against my ribs. Nathan was asleep beside me when I slipped out of bed and looked through the front window. The street was empty, washed pale under a flickering lamp. My car sat in the driveway. Still. I grabbed my coat and stepped outside. The smell hit first. Gasoline. I froze. A thin stream of fuel trailed from beneath my car, pooling on the concrete like a warning. I backed away slowly and dialed 911 with shaking fingers. The fire department confirmed it later. Someone had loosened the fuel line. One spark would have turned the entire driveway into an inferno. That morning, Samuel Reed didn't mince words. "This is no longer just a civil matter," he said grimly. "This is criminal intimidation." Nathan slammed his fist against the kitchen counter. "He could have killed you." "He wanted to scare me," I said quietly. "And did it work?" Reed asked. I thought of Leo. No, that was another life. Another woman. I thought of Evelyn's steady hands, her quiet strength. No, I said. It didn't. But fear had a way of creeping in when the lights went out. Security cameras were installed that afternoon. A temporary relocation was suggested. I refused. This is my home, I said. Victor doesn't get to chase me out of it. 2 days later, Helen called me in tears. He came to the house, she whispered. He demanded I testify against you. My chest tightened. What did you say? I told him the truth, she said. That Evelyn loved you. That you were her family in every way that mattered. Victor had laughed, Helen said. Then he'd leaned in close. You'll regret that. That night, Marianne sent me an encrypted email. I found more. But it puts you at risk. We met in a public cafe the next morning. Marianne looked exhausted, eyes darting constantly. Victor isn't just hiding money, she said, sliding a folder across the table. He's been funneling funds into shell companies tied to illegal land acquisitions overseas. I flipped through the documents. This wasn't corporate greed. This was criminal enterprise. If this goes public, Marianne continued, he'll lose everything. But he won't go down alone. Meaning? I asked. He'll try to destroy you first. The next blow came faster than expected. A sealed envelope arrived by courier that evening. Inside was a court filing. Victor was petitioning for temporary conservatorship over me. Claiming emotional instability. Psychological distress. Erratic behavior. He was trying to paint me as unfit, legally incompetent. My hands shook as I read it. Nathan stared at the papers in disbelief. He's saying you're unstable. He's saying I can't manage my own affairs, I replied. Which would give him control over the trust. Samuel Reed was livid. This is retaliation, he said. And it's transparent. But will it work? I asked. He paused. Only if he convinces a judge. The evaluation was scheduled for the following week. Victor was escalating. And so was I. I authorized Reed to release a portion of the evidence publicly, carefully, strategically. A journalist picked up the story. Heir alleges corporate embezzlement and intimidation by industry executive. Victor's name began trending by morning. His sponsors went quiet. Board members resigned. Then came the message. A voicemail this time. Victor's voice was calm. Too calm. You could have had a comfortable life, Clara, he said. All you had to do was stay in your place. I deleted it without responding. The psychological evaluation lasted 3 hours. The doctor asked about my childhood. My relationship with Evelyn. The threats. The attempted sabotage. I told the truth. When it ended, she smiled gently. You're one of the most grounded individuals I've assessed under extreme stress, she said. Victor didn't show up to court the next day. His attorney cited health concerns. The judge didn't look impressed. Instead, she issued a temporary restraining order against Victor for harassment and intimidation. As I left the courthouse, cameras flashed. For the first time, I didn't look away. Victor had tried to break me. Instead, he'd exposed himself. And this war was no longer private. The investigation moved faster than I expected. Once the restraining order was issued, the dam broke. Federal agents arrived at Victor's headquarters at dawn, black SUVs, sealed warrants, quiet efficiency. By noon, the news was everywhere. Financial executive under federal investigation for fraud and intimidation. I watched the broadcast from my kitchen, hands wrapped around a mug that had long gone cold. Nathan stood behind me, resting his hands on my shoulders. "It's happening," he murmured. "Yes," I replied. "But it's not over." Samuel Reed confirmed that afternoon what the headlines hinted at. "The evidence Marianne uncovered was enough to trigger a multi-agency probe," he said. "Money laundering, obstruction of justice, witness intimidation. And the trust?" I asked. Reed allowed himself a thin smile. "Frozen. Victor can't touch a cent." That should have felt like victory. Instead, I felt hollow. Because power doesn't disappear, it thrashes when it's cornered. 2 days later, Marianne vanished. Her apartment was empty. Phone disconnected. No forwarding address. Panic clawed up my throat as I called Reed. "She knew this was a risk," he said carefully. "We've notified authorities." "But Victor?" I pressed. "No direct proof," he admitted. Yet. That night, Helen came to see me. She looked older than I remembered, shoulders bowed beneath years of silence. "I need to tell you something," she said. Something I should have said long ago. We sat in Evelyn's study, the same room where I had first been accused of not belonging. Helen clasped her hands together, knuckles white. "Victor isn't just cruel," she said. "He's terrified." "Of what?" I asked. "Of the truth." She took a shaky breath. Evelyn knew Victor wasn't her biological son. She found out when he was 16. The words landed like a thunderclap. She kept it quiet, Helen continued. Protected him. Loved him anyway. But Victor never forgave her for knowing. Everything snapped into place. His obsession with bloodlines. His contempt for me. His desperation to control the narrative. "He's been running from exposure his entire life," I whispered. Helen nodded. "And now you're the one holding the light." The following morning, I was summoned, not by a court, but by the board Victor once ruled. 3 former allies. 1 empty chair. "We want to distance the company from Victor completely," one of them said. "Publicly. Permanently. And what do you want from me?" I asked. "Your silence," another said carefully. I smiled, not kindly. No, their faces tightened. "I'm not interested in backroom deals," I continued. "I want accountability. Transparency. And if we give you a seat," the first man offered. "Full authority. Control." Nathan's voice echoed in my head, "Power doesn't disappear." "I'll consider it," I said. "On one condition." They leaned in. "You cooperate fully with investigators," I said. "No shielding. No delays." They exchanged looks. Finally, one nodded. "Agreed." That afternoon, I received an encrypted message. From Marianne. "He knows you're stronger than him. That's why he's afraid. I'm safe, for now. Trust yourself." Relief nearly buckled my knees. Then came the final move. Victor requested a private meeting. Against everyone's advice, I agreed, on courthouse grounds, with security present. He looked smaller than I remembered. No tailored suit. No commanding presence. Just a man unraveling. "You won," he said bitterly. "Satisfied?" "No," I replied. "I want answers." His eyes burned. "You were never meant to be here," he snapped. "Evelyn made you a threat the moment she loved you." "You mean the moment you realized you weren't special anymore," I said calmly. That broke him. "She lied to me," he hissed. "About everything." "No," I said. "She loved you anyway. You just couldn't accept that love without control." Silence stretched between us. Finally, Victor laughed, a hollow sound. "You think this ends with me," he said. There are others. Bigger than me. Then they should be scared too, I replied. He leaned back, eyes empty. I built my life on fear, he said softly. And now it's eating me alive. The guards stepped forward. As Victor was escorted away, I felt no triumph. Only clarity. That evening, I returned to Evelyn's study alone. I opened her desk drawer and found a sealed letter addressed to me. Clara, if you're reading this, it means the truth finally came into the light. I knew you would be strong enough to carry it. Blood makes relatives. Love makes family. And courage makes legacy. I pressed the letter to my chest. Tomorrow, the final reckoning would come. And this time, I would stand in it unafraid. The courtroom was quieter than I expected. No shouting. No drama. Just the heavy weight of truth finally arriving. Victor sat at the defense table, shoulders stiff, eyes hollow. Gone was the man who once filled rooms with intimidation. In his place sat someone diminished by his own choices. I took my seat beside Samuel Reed, Evelyn's letter folded carefully in my bag like a talisman. The judge entered. Proceedings began. The prosecution laid out the case with methodical precision: financial fraud, money laundering, obstruction of justice, witness intimidation. Evidence flowed steadily, each document another brick removed from the foundation Victor had spent decades constructing. Then came the trust. Harrison Mills avoided my gaze as he was sworn in. Under oath, stripped of charm and maneuvering, he unraveled quickly. Yes, he admitted, voice tight. I was aware of Victor's adoption. Gasps rippled through the courtroom. Yes, he continued, I advised him to keep it private. And yes, the prosecutor pressed, you attempted to weaponize bloodline clauses selectively. Harrison swallowed. Yes. Victor stared straight ahead. Next, Samuel Reed rose. Your Honor, he said calmly, we submit Eleanor Whitmore's personal estate addendum. The judge nodded. Reed read aloud. Evelyn's words filled the room, measured, deliberate, unshakable. She spoke of love over lineage. Of foresight over fear. Of how she had structured her estate so no cruelty could override her intent. By the time Reed finished, even the court reporter had tears in her eyes. The judge removed her glasses. It is the ruling of this court, she said, that the Whitmore Trust assets requiring biological descent pass solely to Daniel Whitmore. A pause. And that Clara Whitmore, as Daniel's biological daughter, is the sole qualifying grandchild under those terms. Victor's breath hitched. The remainder of Eleanor Whitmore's personal estate, the judge continued, is distributed exactly as stated in her will. No challenges will be entertained. The gavel struck. It was over. Victor stood abruptly. This isn't justice, he shouted. This is betrayal. The judge's voice was steel. Sit down, Mr. Hale. Or you will be removed. He sank back into his chair. As court adjourned, Victor was escorted out in handcuffs, not for the inheritance, but for the crimes he had committed trying to control it. Our eyes met briefly. There was no hatred in mine. Only finality. Outside the courthouse, cameras surged forward. How does it feel to win? A reporter shouted. I paused. I didn't win, I said clearly. The truth did. That afternoon, I walked through Evelyn's estate one last time before renovations began. Daniel joined me in the study, standing where so many lies had once been spoken. She believed in you completely, he said quietly. I know, I replied. She believed in you too. He smiled, a little sad, a little hopeful. We lost years, he said. Yes, I agreed. But not the future. We decided to convert part of the estate into a foundation, supporting historical preservation, ethical research, and legal advocacy for those silenced by powerful families. Evelyn would have approved. That evening, I received one final message. From Marianne. He's done. Permanently. You did more than survive, you changed the rules. I turned off my phone and stepped onto the balcony. The city stretched below me, alive and indifferent, ready to move forward. For the first time in my life, I wasn't chasing approval. I wasn't proving my worth. I simply was. Victor had spent his life guarding a legacy he never truly earned. Evelyn had built one that couldn't be stolen. And I had inherited something far greater than wealth. Truth. Belonging. Freedom. As night settled in, I whispered a quiet promise, to Evelyn, to myself. No more silence. No more fear. No more living small. The story didn't end with a fortune. It began with a woman finally standing in her own name.